Hello, good afternoon. My name's Lawrence. I'm from the Pitch Perfect podcast, and I own the company SMOSnet. Basically, in the run-up to our sales and marketing masterclass, we're hosting a series of podcasts with industry leaders within the East Riding, East Yorkshire area, and that includes Humberside, North Lincolnshire. And the whole idea is we just want to talk to people about what's working in sales and marketing for them. If you haven't had a chance to look at the masterclass yet, just post me a DM and I'll get you all the information you need. But without any further ado, I'd like to introduce you to this podcast guest, and it's Emily from Emerlilly. Over to you, Emily.
Hi everyone, so I'm Emily Hanson. I am director of Emerlilly Digital. So we're a education and family marketing agency. So we specialise in getting the message out for any brand, individual, company that has an education focus or markets towards families. So everything from universities to companies that are targeting schools. Perhaps they have a programme or an app that they really hope for schools to buy in and for their students. Or perhaps you have a product that you're hoping parents will pick up on and use with their children. It stems from a previous career in teaching. So I used to be a teacher. We're also, I say we, because my husband and I lead, and we're parents. We have two girls. So we are in the thick of the marketing audience, both in terms of previous career and current life stage. And that's what we specialise in because we understand the audience, because we are the audience, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's what we love doing. That's a little intro to Emerlilly.
And do you find it's an easy sell, selling to schools and people who are involved with the education authorities and parents who go to the schools?
In terms of if you are trying to market to schools, I would say schools may well need your product or service, but they're a tough beast to crack. Usually you have a lot of levels of approval that you need to get through. And then you're also trying to work out who exactly in a school you are trying to market to, for example. So you may be hoping that your message reaches teachers, but it might not be the teacher that holds the budget. It could be. It depends what size the school is and what age phase. But you could have a really interested teacher, but if the finances behind what you're offering isn't appealing to the senior leadership team who would make the call to buy you in, it could end there. So they're a kind of very interesting mix between B2C and B2B, because structurally and financially they act like a B2B because they've got a lot of levels of seniority and a budget to manage that will likely be through the local authority. But in terms of actually getting the interest of the school, you often market a little bit more like a B2C because you want to pique the interest of a teacher or a staff member that then passes on the information to the senior leadership team. It doesn't always work that way. It might be a much bigger tender system where you're up against lots of competitors and you're applying to meet a school's needs. But it's an interesting area to market to because it's not as straightforward as just B2B or just B2C. And that's, I think, why we're quite helpful, because I've literally been a teacher sat in front of 30 children staring at me. And I've been in meetings, I've met senior leaders that I know. I can't know how every human being ticks, but I've been in British education systems and I can know exactly what a staff meeting looks like. I know the mindset of what a teacher is what's going to stop them, what's going to make them click, what their search behaviours are like. Yeah, so I wouldn't say it's easy, because I think marketing agencies such as ourselves wouldn't exist if it was a really easy system to get into.
Yeah, marketing agencies, there's millions of them, isn't there? There's quite a few. I mean, nowadays everybody thinks they're a marketeer. And they all think they're social media gurus. What makes you different, apart from speaking to schools? What makes you different in the marketing game?
Well, it's kind of hard to separate them, really, because the services we offer, a lot of folk can offer, but we understand how the specific audience ticks. And most marketing agencies, some are generalists, but a lot of them will have specific sectors that they focus on because different sort of methods apply to the different audience types. in terms of what makes us stand out specific in marketing, I would say we're really broad. So my career started freelance, and I've worked for agencies, I've worked in-house, I've worked as a freelancer completely externally. So I very much know how all the different processes work because I've worked on virtually every single one. And then we have an established team around us as well who specialize. So if we come across something that goes a little bit beyond our scope, we have a really strong network of support that we bring in through Emerlilly to help support. So I'd say it's a combination of industry expertise because that's what makes us stand out. It's knowing marketing, but knowing how it really applies to education and families. But we've
Okay.
also got a very strong broad knowledge because my career started as a freelancer where I would come in and help in so many different aspects of marketing teams. Yeah.
Okay. So speaking about schools, then this is the way my head works, right? If I was in your position, I'd be looking for clients who have got a product that I could sell into schools. Is that how you do it? Or do you wait for people to approach you and say, hey, I want to sell this to headmasters?
We do a real variety of finding out clients. We often find clients through word of mouth. So previous clients that we've worked with pass on that we did a great job for them and that they recommend us. We're in a lot of business communities, so we tend to find quite natural fits. But in terms of, we don't necessarily specifically just target products that sell to schools. We will work with any client if they seem like a good fit that are targeting schools, families, or have something that focuses on education in some way. So it's not just schools, we go right up to higher education. Because I also worked in a university for a while as
Ah, right,
well.
okay. Yeah.
Um, so I've done a lot of things. It's been busy. Had two children in the midst as well somehow. I don't really remember when all that happened. But yeah, but yeah, so if it's got an education focus at the heart of it, essentially, or we're focusing on something that benefits children and young people in some way, and we wouldn't necessarily just specifically target products because we do service as well. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's interesting. Good question. Good answer. I mean, so I noticed on your profile, one of the things that you made, or it seems to strike me, is you develop a lot of content strategy. So somebody comes to you and say, I've got a widget, I want to sell the pens. How would you create a marketing strategy around that pen or a widget or a widget, gizzet, anything? What would you do to create that content?
So how would I create a marketing strategy in
Yes.
general? Great big question. It would require some audience and market research, looking at audience personas. We'd have lots of in-depth chats with the client to really get to know the product or service first and really understand how it benefits the end user. And we'd do some competitor analysis so that we make sure that they're standing out. And then from there, we'd look at which different channels are the best ways to approach things. I'm a big fan of focusing on the ones that are really going to make the difference and not spreading yourself too thin because there's so many shiny different methods of marketing, digital marketing especially. It can be really overwhelming. You can think, oh my gosh, right, there's a new social media platform every day. It changes every day. Should I be doing emails? Should I be having print? Shall I be doing paid advertisements? We would look at exactly where the customer is and then we'd focus there. We'd look at budget too because some channels of marketing are much more budget intensive than others. So the likes of influencer marketing requires more investment to secure the right talent to promote your product. Paid advertisements as well, if you're doing sort of Facebook, Instagram, meta ads, that requires budget too. So it also depends on how much the client has to play with in
Right.
terms of what they can comfortably invest. Whereas the likes of something like organic social media is technically more budget friendly, but it's more time intensive. So we would look at lots and lots of different things from what they want, who they're targeting, what they've got to spend in terms of budget, and then we'd create a full strategy. And then often we'll do the strategy and then we'll be asked to then enact it as well. All depends on where they're at in their journey, but it's different for every single client. So it's hard
Okay.
to just say, here's what a marketing strategy is. because it will depend on what they want to get out there.
And all of this to market to a school, social media platform, email campaigns, word
Not
of mouth.
just school. So if it was schools specifically, that's kind of its own target again, and
Ah,
then that depends on what the product is. Is it, are you selling a curriculum? Are you selling something, and are you selling something that's for education purposes, or more for like the administrative side of the school, whether it's something like an attendance monitoring software?
aha.
Um, and that's kind of one side of as business that we do, where we will support a company that their target is schools, but then we'll also, where the target is parents and families, and that's that more B2C side of things. The kind of underlying tenet is that education, family, improving the lives of children and young people, whether it's directly because you're selling some kind of well-being product that supports children, or whether it's indirectly in that you're a company that sells HR management software for school, it's still filtering down. So
Yeah, 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 yeah.
it's
Okay.
that underlying tenet of somehow benefiting children and young people.
So you're not just selling to schools and local
No,
authorities. Ah, now I
no,
get it.
no. So
Yeah.
that's one area that clients might be focusing on. That's how they're trying. That's what their product is designed towards, where they want to like sell a license, or they want to deliver something in schools. But that's not the only way. The education is the underlying thing, because I think education begins at home.
Yeah.
And so it's not just in schools, but that's often where we find our clients want to go towards, because it's a really natural route. But that usually requires, client will normally know, because it's a very different product. If you're targeting getting it into schools, it's very different to something that you want families to buy and use in their homes. They're very different. But not just schools. No, we'll do anything that's sort of education focused if it aligns with our values.
Got it. Okay, so let me ask you this. You mentioned a few different methods, if you like, of marketing just there. So, how do you know you're not wasting your time? Have you got a good qualification strategy so you can rule out or rule in would-be clients?
Yeah, I mean, usually the best way to assess is where they're at in their business journey and what kind of budget they've got to spend. Because to bring on an agency to support you, you'll need to pay for the agency's
Oh, yeah,
time, and then
yeah.
that's not just if you're doing something like paid advertisements, for example. To advertise on Meta, that's going to cost you as well. So usually it's I'm quite personable. I like to talk to people, so I will talk to somebody and have a discovery call, and it's usually quite quick to see if we're not there yet. Sometimes it might be that we just do a consultancy where I personally will kind of mentor and coach the founder, especially if it's a startup, because you have a lot of really incredible families and parents, for example, that have an amazing idea for a product, but they're bootstrapping, or they are looking for grant funding, or maybe they're on an accelerator and they're pre-revenue, in which case they don't yet have the funds to bring in a full agency, but they need help, in which case it would be like a monthly chat where we would say, right, here's where you should spend your time. It's like a done with you
Mhm.
rather than a done for you. But a done for you service is more costs more because you're outsourcing it. So usually it's quite obvious from straight away, just from having a chat, where you
Yeah,
can be like,
yeah,
right, this isn't something your business can support yet, because you're really early. You're in that stage where you're still building. We can have a coaching session or mentoring consultancy, and then when you're ready and you've got revenue and you can outsource it completely. But it's usually quite organic. It comes from a chat, and typically business owners are if you're a business owner, you're typically a very savvy person. You can quite quickly work out whether you can afford to outsource
yeah,
something.
yeah.
So I rarely have I could probably count on my hand the amount of times where I've had an initial conversation and it transpires that their business isn't ready yet to fund outsourcing something, because typically somebody would have worked that out already. If they've approached an agency, they know that to pay for the time and expertise requires investment. So, you know, product owners and business owners are time poor. They're not going to spend half an hour, 45 minutes talking to somebody when they know they can't afford it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's usually, I know there's some companies will, and some agencies will have a full sort of questionnaire in advance, and that's a great method. I'm not knocking that at all. But I've just found in our experience, when somebody approaches us or we have an organic chat, rarely is it the case where they realize it's way more than they had in mind because they've already sort of done the research themselves.
Okay, very well answered that. Because I see me when I start talking to a client, if I get the inclination that they really can't afford me or they can't afford the products that I'm selling, sometimes I go, "Are you looking for the cheapest or the best?" And I'll base the rest of my phone call on what they tell me. If they go, "Oh, we're just collecting quotes," I know they're not for me. Or they go, "Oh, well, we just need our," and then normally they kind of underplay it and they kind of play it right down so that they want me to just drop prices or go in with the cheapest, in which case I think that phone call normally lasts about 40 seconds. Whereas if they go, "Oh, no, no, we don't want the cheapest," then I'm immediately thinking about them in a different way. I really can't stand tire kickers. Honestly, they do my nut in. But in the early days, I used to try and pitch everything. And I'm guessing you have quickly understood or found a way to rule out the tire kickers, as it were.
I think it comes quite, it's because now again, I've had two children this time, so I lose track of how long it's been. But when I first started um, growing, and yeah, I'd probably be willing to speak to chat. To be fair, I still will quite happily chat to anybody who wants to talk marketing, and because usually if they found me, it's because we're a good fit. But I would probably have been much more quick to reduce prices early on because I didn't have as much experience, and it's very new. But now I feel very confident in what we offer. We're benchmarked against standard pricing for agencies. I feel like our prices are very fair. So if somebody isn't is people wouldn't normally come to us and be expecting a lot less because they know that I think we have quite savvy clients. Yeah.
Okay, right. What makes you unique? Now, a lot of people go on it. They bang on about USPs. I used to hate all of these little um, words and letters that are supposed to mean something. So, what makes you really, really unique? Why would I give you my hard-earned money and not another marketing agency?
I think because we stand out because of our experience in the classroom, honestly. So as me, I have my PGC and my AMED from Cambridge. I worked very hard for it. And I think that really helps us stand out because we don't just say, here's what schools want. We say, here's what schools want because we've been in them.
Ah, right.
I like to say, I have been the teacher sat in front of four, five, 30, 4 to 5 year olds. Three of them haven't had breakfast that morning. A lot of them are in tears because they miss their parents. I've got to do the register, and then three emails pop in my inbox, and they're all trying to sell me something. I know what I would delete in under seconds. And I think it's really hard to replicate that understanding unless you've been in it. And it would be just the same. I mean, I'm making an assumption here, but if you've been a doctor and you know how to market towards, I mean, I have no idea how you market towards a hospital, but I'm not, but I think if having that industry experience and the knowing the mental process of somebody who you're trying to sell to, and it's schools are understandably quite closed because they're focused on getting great outcomes and keeping their children happy and well. But having been inside them,
Mhm.
I think that's one thing that really stands out. And because I've not just been in teaching. I say I a lot because it used to be just me, and we're bigger now. But we really try hard to make sure any freelancers or anybody who comes in is also a specialist in education, family. Many are ex-teachers as well, or still
Mhm.
current teachers who are doing a bit of work on the side. But we try and really say our specialism is education because it's what we're passionate about and it's what we know. And I've worked in primary, and then I've done youth work as well. I've worked in higher education, in widening participation. I've pretty much seen it from naught to postgraduate. And we understand the full context of where a child is preschool, in nursery, early years, right through to somebody who's deciding where they want to do their postgraduate training, because I've worked across all of it and I head it all up. And I think that's what makes us stand out. There's
Right.
not a huge amount of education marketing specialist agencies, but there's a lot of generalist ones, but that's why we focus. And I think, yeah, we stand out because we've been in that seat.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's quite unique. And I think that puts you in a really, really good position for anybody who wants to sell into schools. And I know
Thank you.
we've spoke
I
about a
think so.
project. Yeah. And we spoke about a project that I've got on the go with a client of mine. And I do think I'll be talking to you a little bit further about it. So when you deliver a price, then I've got a question for you regarding closing deals. Okay. When you get to the point where you price it all up and you're about to deliver a price, do you do it face to face or do you send an email? And which works best for you?
I typically send a quote over email. So a great example, I just got off a call with a potential client and we were talking about the project, but then they're going to send me some further details and then I'm going to quote them over email. Firstly, because I think it's best to have everything in writing. For the client and for us, it's really clear exactly what a price is. And also, every package we do is quite bespoke because
Uh-huh.
every client is. So I need time to really go through everything to give a fair quote. I don't like to just spitball a number, because it would just be a really rough number, and I need time to make sure I'm pricing it appropriately. So it would usually be a discovery call, sometimes a further call if we need to talk in more detail or they need to prepare a brief or something. Um, so there will be a face to face, which will be followed up by a quote in writing. That's how
Okay.
we tend to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Out of 10, how many did you sign up?
Gosh, I honestly couldn't give you that answer. A high success rate, but
Okay.
I've,
I know I put
I
you on the
couldn't,
spot there for
I
everybody. What are your
we
numbers?
we have a clear CRM where we assess all progressing clients. For the most part, if a client's reached out to us, we've had a discovery call, they want to book on, but I don't have a full numbered list of leads to qualify. I track them, but I don't keep a number of that. Maybe that's something that I should do more of. Business is going well, and we have a successful rate. When I've on a call to somebody, it usually converts to a client,
Oh
but
my
I don't
God.
keep an actual numerical figure of how many. We just track them. So I should
My God.
probably do that.
When I started in direct sales, all of our sales managers, every one I've ever worked with, they would say, "What's your numbers? What's your close rate?" And if you didn't know your numbers, they would browbeat you until you did. And I've continued this pretty much all of my life because if I want a holiday and it's going to cost me, say, 8 grand, and I know my numbers are, if I do 2 presentations, I get 1 sale. This is a for example. If you do 10,
Mm-hmm.
you should literally get 6 or 7. Um, and then you know your average order value, you could basically say,
Mm.
right, I need 8 grand for the holiday. I need to make 3 sales this week or this month, or I need to make an extra 1 sale this quarter to get me the holiday so it doesn't actually come out of my own money. Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. It sounds like I was raised by a salesman. My dad's retired now, but he used to be a car salesman.
Yeah.
So that's what he would be saying exactly the same thing. I'll have to tell him later. I think and correct me if I'm wrong, I think when it's more of a product or a more clear, where you kind of a repeatable service, where it's really specific what you're offering, and it's a case of presentation, purchase, or offer purchase, it's more of a straightforward, you can say, yeah, there was a sale. I suppose ours, we tend to have quite long-standing retainer relationships with clients, so it tends to be quite a long process to getting them onboarded. But I have learned something, that I should keep a proper figure. I think I'm too busy making sure that our current clients are happy with what we're providing, and then talking to lots and lots of leads to be actually assessing how many of them have come off versus those that haven't. But yeah, that sounds like
Yeah.
something
The only thing I can
something.
liken that to is I used to sell advertising up in Newcastle for the Chamber of Commerce, and it was the
Mhm.
same thing. Could progress about, it could be up to 3 weeks before you got the okay, but even so, I would still say, this is how many leads I've got, this is how many I've pitched and presented to, and this is how many I've closed this month. And some of them will still be ongoing, but I would
Mhm.
still know my numbers, from
Mhm.
leads to presentations. I would even know how many no's I got, because I used to have a strategy to go back to those at a later date, coming towards the end of a directory, and I'd go back to them and offer them a ridiculously low price just to boost my commissions. So numbers
Mhm.
was a big thing for me, and I was just keen to find out whether or not it is still a thing in today's marketplace. But
I
I
think
always keep numbers.
I think it's a really good point, and it's also helpful because we keep track of leads and assess whether, if it didn't work out, why was that? Um, but it's good to keep a number on it. I
Oh, and
think.
I'm
I
glad you're going to
think, but
get
it's
something out of this. And let me
yeah,
know.
of
I'd love to
course.
know what those numbers are. Is there anything else you would like to cover today? Because I'm going to wrap this up if there's nothing else from you. And I love being here, having a chat with you. And I thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to add or cover?
Not really.
No?
Just, well, I suppose I can say that if anybody listening is focusing on education or family as their market, whether it's schools or in the home, we'd love to have a chat. I'm sure Lawrence will link our website and all our details. You can book a discovery call direct from our website, and you'd be speaking to me because I really
Okay.
like talking to people. And if that sounds like something that your listeners would like, then we are here. But it was lovely to speak to you too,
Oh, it's been
and
my
I've definitely
pleasure.
learned something. I'll be telling my dad. I was like, I got some sales tips
I
today,
got
and he'll
some
be like, "What,
lessons.
were you not
Oh, my
listening to
God.
me for the last 30 years? I'll give you some sales tips."
Good.
But yeah,
I'm so
that's
pleased. Well, thank you so much for your time. And, it's been an absolute pleasure.